All right, we're just a few weeks away from the next Democratic debate, and Joe Biden has maintained a lead in the majority of state and national polls, while some other candidates have slowly started ending their campaigns. Joining us now, Democratic strategist Antjuan Seawright. Antjuan, in recent days, we've seen several candidates drop out of the 2020 race. Just today, Seth Moulton. Are you expecting this trend to continue in the next few weeks as we get closer to that debate they need to qualify for?
Absolutely. I think our slate of presidential candidates is going to become a little more slimmer and trimmer as we go forward in this nomination process, as expected. At the end of the day, even for the candidates who may have dropped out, I still think they have more to offer to this country from a leadership perspective than the current person who occupies the White House, President Donald Trump. Look, I think competition has been very good for the marketplace when it comes to Democrats. When I look at some of the candidates who have been in the race and those who have not exited, without them being in the race, some of these conversations we've had, like gun control with Eric Swalwell, like climate change with Jay Inslee, and like Seth Moulton with the importance of service and veterans, none of these things perhaps may not have been on the forefront and at the same level of conversation without them being in the race.
All right, we've talked about some of the people who have dropped out. Let's talk about some of the front runners and the leaders. Biden, clearly one of the strongest contenders so far, but what other key players are you looking at?
Well, I think everyone has to keep an eye on Mayor Pete. He obviously has something special and unique about him that's grabbing the hearts and minds and attention of a lot of people. I think you definitely cannot count out Cory Booker and Kamala Harris, two strong, well-qualified, and well-put-together African-American candidates who ultimately speak to the heart and soul of this Democratic Party, and that's African-American voters every chance they get. And no one can press the ignore button or the chill out button on Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren as they fight for who will occupy that progressive lane on the political highway. But the fact of the matter is, Joe Biden arguably has demonstrated his ability to take the heat and not miss a beat, or as we say in the South, take a licking and keep on ticking. Yeah. And he is still the front runner. I think he enjoys favorability and flavorability within this party at a wide range, but solidly with the most loyal voting bloc in this party, that's African-American voters. And when I look at the states and the places that will decide our nominee, and I may be biased, but I think that his support in South Carolina sends a strong message that he is in this race to stay, and if his trends continues, he will be our nominee.
Let's talk for a second about Kamala Harris. In June, we saw her get a pretty nice boost in the polls after the first debate, but recently her numbers haven't been quite as strong. How can a candidate make sure that their strong stage performance translates and kind of gives them a steady lead in the polls?
Well, I don't think you can take anything for granted and understand that a moment may not transfer or transition into long-term momentum. But I think Kamala is being very strategic, and her campaign is being very strategic, that they are building a foundation in order to have a house to stand on later on. Look, this primary will be a marathon, not a sprint for everyone. And she is racking up Congressional Black Caucus endorsements. She's putting a hell of a lot of money on the ground in terms of investments in staff. You saw her latest investments in staff in California. I think she has the largest staff on the ground. So I think she's building and playing long ball, and I think that's very smart because it's not how you start out, it's how you end up.
You mentioned that investment on the ground, put a lot of people on the ground. That's something Elizabeth Warren has done as well. Do you think as you continue, or as they continue to move forward, that is really what's going to make the difference? Because some people have said, wow, that is a lot of money and a lot of people to be putting on the ground.
Well, some things are an investment, some things are an expense. I think when you invest in a ground game, I think you're investing in your political life. The fact of the matter is, and I've said this, I think Democrats sometimes get cute in our approach to campaigning, but I'm a firm believer that it takes a high-tech and a high-touch effort in order to be successful. And part of the high-touch effort is investing in a strong ground game, touching voters, knocking doors, making phone calls, and showing up places and showing up where people are. And I don't think we can afford to leave one piece of food on the table this presidential cycle because the stakes are so high. And there's so many voters who perhaps showed up for Donald Trump in the Republican primary in 2016 and voted for him in the Republican presidential election and general election in 2016 that will decide to do something different in this presidential primary and vote for a Democrat. And so with that being said, there's so much at stake and so many people to touch.
Antjuan Seawright, there is definitely a big difference between an investment and an expense. Thank you so much.
No question.
Hey, NBC News viewers, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.